Have you ever met someone who seemed impossible to work with? Someone everyone avoided because they believed that person was simply too difficult? But what if the real story had nothing to do with anger or pride, and everything to do with silent pain? Today's story will remind you that sometimes the greatest act of kindness is refusing to walk away when everyone else already has. One exhausted single dad took a job that nobody wanted. Every assistant before him had quit within a single day. They said the wealthy CEO was impossible, cold, and impossible to please. But what happened after one simple act of compassion changed both of their lives forever will stay with you long after this story ends. Before we begin, if stories about kindness, hope, and second chances inspire you, don't forget to subscribe to Be Kind Always, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us continue bringing heartwarming stories that remind the world kindness still matters. Now, let's begin. When Daniel Parker looked at his 8-year-old daughter sleeping on their tiny apartment couch, he knew he couldn't afford to lose another job. Since his wife had passed away 3 years earlier, every day had been a struggle. He worked wherever he could, cleaned offices at night, delivered groceries on weekends, and still worried every month about paying rent. Then one morning he saw an unusual job listing. Personal assistant needed. High salary. Immediate start. There was one strange sentence underneath. Only serious applicants. Most people quit within one day. Daniel smiled sadly. I've survived worse than one difficult day, he whispered. The next morning he walked into the tallest office building in the city. Employees looked at him with sympathy. Good luck, one receptionist quietly said. You'll be gone before lunch, another employee whispered. Daniel simply thanked them. He was led into a beautiful office overlooking the city. Behind a large desk sat Victoria Hayes, one of the youngest and most successful CEOs in America. Years earlier, a terrible car accident had left her paralyzed from the waist down. She now lived her life in a wheelchair. She barely looked at Daniel. Everyone quits, she said coldly. You probably will too. Daniel nodded politely. Maybe, he replied. But I'd like to earn that decision myself. She looked up for the first time. Nobody had ever answered her like that. The first few hours were exhausting. Victoria demanded impossible schedules, changed instructions every few minutes, criticized tiny mistakes, and rarely said thank you. By lunchtime Daniel understood why nobody stayed. But he also noticed something else. Every time someone tried helping Victoria with simple personal tasks, she became defensive and angry. It wasn't arrogance. It looked more like fear. Late that afternoon, Daniel accidentally dropped an important folder. Photographs scattered across the floor. As he gathered them, he noticed family pictures. Victoria smiling beside an older couple. Victoria hiking in the mountains. Victoria running a marathon. Then suddenly, hospital pictures. Wheelchairs. Rehabilitation. Everything changed. Without saying a word, Daniel carefully placed every photo back exactly where he had found it. Victoria had watched the entire moment. She expected pity. Instead, Daniel simply asked, "Would you like some fresh coffee?" She looked confused. "You saw the pictures?" "Yes." And I think your meeting starts in 15 minutes. For the first time in years, someone had treated her like a person instead of a tragedy. The following days remained difficult. Victoria continued testing him. Sometimes she deliberately gave impossible assignments. Sometimes she stayed silent for hours. Other assistants would have quit. Daniel didn't. Every evening after work he hurried home to help his daughter Emily with homework, cook dinner, and read bedtime stories. One Friday Emily insisted on packing an extra homemade cookie. "For your boss," she said. Daniel laughed. "I don't think she'll eat it." Maybe nobody ever asked. The next morning Daniel quietly placed the cookie beside Victoria's coffee. She frowned. "What's this?" "My daughter baked it. I don't eat homemade food." "That's okay." He picked it up without another word. A few minutes later Victoria stopped him. "Leave it." Later that afternoon Daniel noticed the cookie had disappeared. The following Monday Victoria spoke more softly than usual. "How old is your daughter?" 8. "Does she always bake?" "Whenever she wants someone to smile." Victoria looked out the window. "My mother used to bake every Sunday." It was the first personal thing she had shared. Weeks slowly became months. The office changed too. Employees noticed Victoria smiling more often. She started thanking people. She remembered birthdays. She even began asking workers about their families. Nobody could believe it. One rainy evening Daniel stayed late organizing reports. As he walked past Victoria's office, he heard quiet crying. He gently knocked. She quickly wiped away tears. "I'm fine." Daniel didn't argue. Instead, he quietly placed a box of tissues on her desk. Then he turned to leave. "Daniel." He stopped. "Why haven't you quit?" He smiled gently. "Because difficult people usually carry invisible pain. Someone taught me that after my wife died." Victoria looked down. "After my accident, everyone either pitied me or expected me to be strong all the time. Nobody simply stayed." Daniel nodded. Sometimes kindness isn't fixing someone's life. It's just refusing to leave. Tears rolled down Victoria's face. For the first time since her accident, she allowed herself to cry in front of another person. Months later the company held its annual leadership conference. Hundreds of employees filled the auditorium. Victoria rolled onto the stage. Everyone expected another business speech. Instead, she surprised them. "I've built successful companies," she began. "I've made millions of dollars. But I almost lost something far more valuable." She paused. "My ability to trust people." She invited Daniel onto the stage. He looked completely shocked. "This man wasn't my best assistant because he worked harder than everyone else." She smiled. "He became my best assistant because he saw my heart before my wheelchair." The audience stood and applauded. Then Victoria made another announcement. Daniel would become Director of Employee Care, creating programs that supported workers facing family hardships, disabilities, and personal loss. The entire room erupted with applause. That evening Daniel came home carrying flowers. Emily ran into his arms. "Did your boss smile today?" Daniel laughed. "Yes." "A real smile?" "The biggest one yet." Emily grinned proudly. "I knew the cookie would work." Daniel hugged his daughter tightly. "No, sweetheart. It wasn't the cookie. It was the kindness behind it." From that day forward, Victoria transformed not only her company but also countless lives. Employees found a workplace filled with compassion instead of fear. Families received support during difficult times. New opportunities were created for people with disabilities. And it all began because one tired single father chose patience instead of giving up. Kindness rarely arrives with loud applause or grand speeches. More often, it appears in quiet moments when someone decides to stay, to listen, and to care even when it's difficult. You never know whose life might change because of one gentle word, one small gift, or one decision not to walk away. If this story touched your heart, remember that kindness costs very little but can change everything. Be the person who sees beyond someone's struggles. Be the reason another person believes in hope again. And wherever life takes you, never underestimate the incredible power of choosing kindness, because the smallest act of compassion may become the beginning of someone's greatest new chapter.